Welcome back, one and all, to the horror show at A to the K. We have another fun-filled week of wrestling talk for you all. We're going to see some familiar faces in different places. We're going to see some god-awful matches, which is unfortunately become the norm these days. We are going to see some crazy storyline possibilities cropping up. I'll go into that when we talk Extreme Rules. I would like to get your thoughts on that as well, Carl, even though I'm talking to you before I've officially introduced, but we'll get on to that. So, as always, you are listening to the man of zero holds. It's me, Anthony. And I'm joined by the all-English Englishman. It's Carl. Give him a big hello, Carl.
Well, big hello, everyone, once again. Everyone listening, sitting there at home, thumping your Bibles. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. You can talk about your Psalms, talk about your John 3:16. Well, Carl 3:16 says, I just want to welcome you all to this week's podcast.
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
see what I did there.
Yeah. It's I love it, Carl. Honestly, at some point, I think we're both going to start struggling with these.
But, a little bit.
Yeah, but
now
we'll keep going. And this is the problem, because as WWE are failing to make new stars, we're having to rely on legends as well. So this is going to be the problem. This is going to be the problem.
It's true.
I mean, admittedly, the one I had for you this week was actually a fairly new star. So that's good.
Well, yeah.
Channeling the Jack Swagger days.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Classics. Anyway, so as always, guys, we have the Ringside Report coming up. We have This Week in Wrestling, in which we'll talk about the big four shows. Our Seg 3 this week is going to be probably more of an extension of This Week in Wrestling, as we'll be talking about Extreme Rules. And to be fair, there's a lot to be said with Extreme Rules. It was not what I expected, I think, is probably the best thing to say, Carl. I don't know how you felt about it, but it's going to be an interesting discussion, I think.
Indeed.
But before we get into all that, let's talk the Ringside Report. So it's the news, Carl. So I'm gonna try and do this as an official intro. You ready? Hello and welcome to the Ringside Report. Coming up tonight, multiple former WWE wrestlers debut at TNA's Slammiversary. Mustafa Ali is set to make his WWE return. There is speculation arising over Apollo Crews' absence from WWE. A UFC star is possibly joining AEW. As well as a UFC star, we're also seeing a former WWE star potentially joining AEW's ranks. We have Tony Khan speaking on PAC's current status within AEW. We're also talking Kairi Sane maybe actually leaving this time, although we've mentioned it a few times. There seems to be some truth to the speculation now. We see some WWE releases, and apparently these are due to the complaints over Saudi Arabia that they formally voiced. So we'll discuss that a little bit more. And the last one is Matt Cardona, or Zack Ryder, as he was formerly known, has recently teased his new internet title and entrance theme. So we'll talk on that a little bit as well. So we have all that coming up shortly. But first, let's take a look at the traffic. Yeah, it's quite bad. That traffic. Yeah, it looks really busy. Okay, so firstly, let's talk about TNA's recent Slammiversary pay-per-view, Carl. Now, for those of you who want our full review of TNA's Slammiversary, you're out of luck. We don't watch it. But it's newsworthy for us, and it's no disrespect to TNA. We 4 shows a week, guys. Come on. But obviously, we're a number of releases in the last few months from WWE, and there's been a lot of speculation over where they would go. Would it be AEW, New Japan, TNA, or indies, such as Ring of Honor, that sort of thing? And now Slammiversary has answered that for some of these stars. So we've seen the notable ones, really, and probably the biggest talking point for me, Carl, with you, is the first one I'll mention is Heath Slater appearing on Slammiversary.
Yeah.
And this is probably the most notable because it was almost is he going back to WWE? Because we very recently, 2 weeks ago, seen him on WWE in a title match.
Yeah, so, I was definitely quite surprised. It was weird, to be honest, because I think we saw some stuff leading up to this around Rhino was looking for a partner. They kind of alluded to it, but then having Heath show up so close to Slammiversary, I was kind of like, well, okay, no, it mustn't be him, it must be someone else, and then there you go, he shows up out of nowhere. So
And I'll make it a little bit clear for anyone listening and anyone who doesn't really follow TNA or follow what's going on here. It's not a foregone that he's definitely signed with TNA either, because he made I think he made a point of wearing a shirt that pointed out he was a free agent. So he's free to sort of move around as he pleases, I suppose, at this stage. But it seems that he's certainly going to have at least some sort of story run with TNA. They also had a backstage part of Slammiversary in which he was celebrating with Rhino and almost building up a little bit of a rivalry. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with it. But I'm intrigued by the free agent status as well, because are we potentially going to see him move around to like the likes of Ring of Honor or New Japan or whichever once the travel restrictions lift, certainly anyway. And that leads me hopefully nicely into our other two. We actually saw Gallows and Anderson appearing. Now, again, I believe they are signed with TNA. These are all just random appearances, so we don't quite know. Obviously, they've been teasing heavily going back to New Japan when they can. And, TNA have had a working relationship with New Japan, so it's not to say that they're not signed with them. But these are the next two big names to appear at Slammiversary. What do you make of this appearance, Carl? Is it a surprise to you, or because I think there was a lot of speculation that they were AEW bound, especially with the relationship with the Elite from New Japan.
Yeah, so I mean, by all accounts, before they re-signed with WWE, they had an offer from AEW, and they chose to take the money at WWE, which wasn't guaranteed because it was only if they worked all the dates, and they did go on to get fired. So not the best decision, but I believe there was no second offer that came from AEW. So I guess TNA was where they ended up. But for me, this was weird. This one, I'm unsure. Like I've seen it. I've actually watched them make their debut. But was Gallows pissed because he's stumbling around on the entrance ramp, and as he goes down, he slips and does he almost falls on his ass. And then after they get in there with the new champ, they do like the Austin thing where they throw the beers in, and everyone catches it, and he fucking drops it, and he's stumbling around everywhere. He looked drunk. So
I mean, not to speculate, maybe it's a new gimmick. I don't know.
Maybe.
The drunken
I thought
guy.
he was going back to Sex Ferguson from the the old things with his little thrust that he did when he nearly went on his ass on the ramp. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely surprised to see them there. Be even more surprised if he was absolutely blottoed out of his mind.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can only celebrate for so long.
This is true.
And the last one, certainly notable. I mean, there were other debuts that are less relevant to us because they're from either former TNA people or people who've been out on injury and that sort of thing. But the last notable one, Carl, and this is more of a homecoming as far as TNA goes, and it was a very strange, not really a debut, let's say. It was a video at the end, and it was a tease for the return of EC3. Now, this video was, I actually think, executed really well, but a bit unusual because there was no words, there was no anything, there was no appearance, no attacking no one. He was just on screen. He threw his glass at the wall. The wall had 3 markings on it, obviously EC3, and there was just that intensity in the video, and that's it. It closed out. So we know he's coming back, but there's no detail. There's just a lot of hype, I suppose. So I think it's been executed really well, especially at a pay-per-view that's ended up being quite heavy for return, should I say? Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was. I suppose it was a nice touch by not having him get involved in the main event match or anything like that. It was literally just a promo at the end. Well, I mean, certainly a promo. It was more like a vignette, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought it was handled really well, and he was a star, a big star for TNA, EC3, way back when. So I think it's a massive kind of coup.
I dare say that's where he's been his biggest, really, isn't it? To be fair. So I'd say a bit of a homecoming there, and I think it's the right place from WWE. Absolutely wasted the talent he was, and it's nice to see he's going back to somewhere that have that sort of respect for him, because I suppose he's a bit of a legend in the TNA side of things really now at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Another little note, or a side note, what I'm saying as well, is since Gallows and Anderson have appeared, there's been suggestions that they'd been planning their return to TNA or their appearance at TNA for a while, and the original plan was that they were going to attack Tessa Blanchard, obviously until the whole situation with Tessa Blanchard happened. So it seems like this has been in the works for a little, well, at least a few weeks now. Certainly before she got the axe, anyway. So just a little side note for you, Carl.
Very interesting.
Do you want to move on to our next headline, as it were?
Yeah, so the first one I've got this week, so it looks like a WWE superstar is set to return for tapings this week, and that superstar being Mustafa Ali. So, for a while now, we've had these vignettes of the hacker that kind of just fell by the wayside a little bit and got dropped, and then, it was kind of under the radar, noticed that Ali had been moved from the SmackDown roster over to the Raw roster. And I believe, based on the news this week, he was one of the guys who's been called for tapings for today, which is obviously Monday for Raw. So that's not obviously guaranteed.
I'm glad you clarified that because I wasn't 100% sure what taping it was.
Well, so he's been called for taping starting today, but that they tape a couple of shows at the same time, so we don't necessarily know whether he's going to appear tonight or whether it could be next week or even the week after, depending on how many they do. Or they might just not even fucking use him because, let's be honest, Vince might just go, nah.
Or it turned out, yeah, look, there he is behind the plexiglass cheering with everyone else.
I mean, who knows? But I kind of feel for the guy really, because it came to light, didn't it, that the reason he moved to Raw was he was getting really tired of Bruce Pritchard and his kind of misuse or lack of interest in him, so he wanted to go over to Raw to work for Paul Heyman. So yeah, Paul
Bruce is there like, you'll never escape.
Exactly. So fucking hell, it's pretty dreadful, really, if you're him.
That's crazy.
So I don't know. I think I still feel quite bad the fact that the hacker thing fell by the wayside. It definitely wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it was different. It was something.
You never know. You never know, Carl. They might try and continue on with it. This might be the fruition of the random appearances of the hacker that kind of never really did anything other than screw over Mandy Rose.
Screw Mandy Rose? What?
Oh no, sorry. They screwed over Sonya Deville. Really, they just showed the truth.
Yeah, I just said screwing Mandy Rose, and I was lost for a bit. But yeah, so I don't know. I think hopefully they do something decent with him, but it's not looking good really. When Vince was apparently quite big on the guy a while ago, and then he kind of lost interest, and then he's been injured, and then Bruce Pritchard doesn't have anything for him, and then he kind of goes, well, fuck you, Bruce, I'm going to go to Raw and be a Paul Heyman guy. Then Paul Heyman's sacked, and now he's got Bruce. Yeah.
So he tried to pull an AJ Styles because apparently AJ moved to SmackDown because he hated Paul Heyman. So similar reason, and it's all worked out quite well for AJ. Not so much for Ali.
I mean, I think I said this before. You can try and blame Paul Heyman all you want. It's the fact that the fucking DOC was shit and Heyman didn't have anything for them because, why would you? He didn't do fuck all. So,
yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't.
But it was AJ's fault.
I would not be pissed off with Heyman. Not to digress into a slightly other topic, I wouldn't be pissed off with Heyman. I'd be pissed off with the likes of Triple H and that, who convinced them to re-sign.
Oh yeah.
And now they're out on the fucking air.
Do you know what? I don't even think it was Triple H necessarily, because by all accounts he said, you know what, if they're not using you up at WWE, I'll use you down here in NXT. And
Vince went, no, you fucking won't.
Basically, yeah. He was like, no, you can get fucked on that one. So yeah, there they are in TNA.
Bad times. But hopefully TNA is a good fit for them.
Well, yeah, at least until New Japan opens up, and let's see whether fucking Gallows can not be absolutely fucking smashed off his face next time he shows up.
I like it. Might be moving back into the Festus thing. You never know.
Maybe. Whatever. So what have you got next, Anthony?
My next one, Carl, is just to discuss the speculation over Apollo Crews. Now, this is all very speculative because there's not been any confirmation here, but the suggestion is that Apollo Crews is one of the people who's been diagnosed with COVID-19, and it would kind of make sense, not necessarily diagnosed with, but certainly having to isolate for whatever reason, because he was having this monster push with the US title, and then we've had his absence for a number of weeks now. Even when they unveiled the new style US title, he wasn't the one who unveiled it, and it's his title. And and without spoiling Extreme Rules, which we will get onto in some more detail, but we know that he didn't even appear at Extreme Rules to defend said title. So I have to imagine this is not a story thing. I have to imagine it's because he has to not be on TV. So it makes a lot of sense that the rumor mill is suggesting that it's potential sort of COVID related. What do you make of this one?
I mean, it does seem random, doesn't it, to have, to go into a program with your US champion and MVP and kind of have the plan to have this, oh, well, I've got a title which is better and we're going to square off for it, and then just not use him at all. So I don't think it's an injury. If it is, he's fucking injury prone, isn't he? Because he was fucking,
And as you know, too many
month.
injuries and Vince falls out with you.
Well, exactly. So, it's, who knows? Maybe it is just a precautionary thing. Maybe it's something to do with COVID. But yeah.
And you never know. I mean, unfortunately, WWE are horrendous with storylines sometimes, so it could even be a storyline. Fuck knows.
Well, I mean, I believe I read, but by all accounts, he was not cleared. But people don't know what that means. Whether he's not cleared from like an injury or whether he's not cleared from, like a COVID standpoint or something. So,
yeah. Well, the storyline point of view, I imagine you heard it, Carl, but the storyline point of view was that, Bobby Lashley done his sort of master lock, as it is, that aggressively to him that he's got a bulging disc or something along the lines of that. So that's why he wasn't cleared to wrestle. But again, got to imagine that's the storyline, but that's not the truth. Hopefully, it's not an injury. At least with the COVID situation, is a isolate for some time and then you're back to it. And it's a situation everyone's in at the minute. It might not look too good on him having another injury, especially because of the way Vince is. The way the management runs there, they end up sort of losing the shine on you a little bit if you have too many. Lovely business to be in.
Yeah, you really feel safe and secure.
Oh yeah.
So the next one I've got is around AEW. So are we going to see a former UFC champion make his way to AEW? We've already seen them there at one point. We are obviously talking about Henry Cejudo.
I'm glad you got this one, Carl. I would have not pronounced that right.
So
would have been like Kijudo.
What kind of martial art is that? You do Kijudo? But yeah, so he's a former Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. He is a former flyweight champion. He's a former bantamweight champion all at the same time. So he goes by Triple C, invented. Also as the captain of Cringe. But look, he's obviously, he's tough as nails. He beat Demetrius Johnson, who's undefeated for years, and he can hold his own. Definitely, he's a fantastic athlete. He's recently retired from UFC. He said he's done all he wants to do. But basically, he was part of Mike Tyson's entourage in the Chris Jericho thing, as were many other MMA fighters. And he's now kind of being quoted as saying, in terms of what's next, he said, probably the wrestling, probably the boxing. But, he's definitely retired. He said he's been in contact with AEW specifically, so he is quoted as saying that. He also said there's a potential big pay-per-view event that they might want to hold. But, there's a lot of options open for him at the minute. So, it's definitely going to be interesting. I think he only stands around 5'4", 5'3". So, I don't know necessarily where they would put him in or who they would put him in with. I'm not saying just because it's height. Obviously, you got Rey Mysterio, who's around 5'4" as well. But if they're planning on pulling him into a program, I'm not too sure who it would be against or how it would work in AEW. But he's already shown up there, so he's obviously said he's got an interest. So I could see it happening, but at the same time, he's a bit of a troll. Is old Henry. So who knows? Let's see what happens. But.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. I mean, obviously, you follow UFC way more than I do. I've played the games a couple of times because they're quite fun. But the more talent we can get on AEW, the better, to be honest. And obviously, he's a legit fighter, so I know it doesn't necessarily translate perfectly to the ring, but he's an athlete, isn't he? So he's going to bring something to it. And it'd be an interesting. Like you say, especially with the height thing, could he be like a new Taz? I know Taz is he a bit taller, Taz?
Yeah, I think he's only about 5'5", though, 5'5", 5'6".
But close enough in it. But Taz was like, aggressive and little, wasn't he? So we'll have another one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I'm definitely interested to see if they bring him in, how they bring him into the fold. Do you know what I mean? Who they put him up against and stuff like that. But he's a legit badass in the wrestling world, in the MMA world, and he's got charisma, but not necessarily. I don't know if it's a good fit for the wrestling world. Like he's known for being cringe, and he likes to reference the fact he's cringe quite a lot, which in itself is cringe. So
yeah, that's kind of cringe.
let's see how it goes. He could just be trolling us all, really. But I'm interested. I think it'd be interesting if they do use him.
Definitely, it's another big name for them. If you're a UFC fan, it might draw you over to AEW, mightn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
At least for a limited time, anyway. And you sit there and go, "It's not real fighting," and then go away again.
Pretty much.
Well, speaking of potential AEW signings, Cal, do you remember the WCW star Crowbar?
No.
Yeah, me neither. And apparently neither does Cody Rhodes. So this fella was again, don't know enough about him, but he was formerly a WCW wrestler. He has recently sort of made it very clear that he is now back in terms of being a performing athlete once again. And a lot of his he's put some tweets up, a bit on social media, trying to push some sort of gimmick of, he's a boomer and he's going to educate the millennials, that kind of thing, which, speaking of cringe, but in his tweet, he has tagged literally Ring of Honor, AEW, New Japan, Impact. So, this is like a fishing exercise. This isn't AEW saying, yeah, we're going to sign him. But a lot of his fans have then been like tagging the likes of Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes and saying, sign this guy, this would be a great shout. To the point that Cody responded, who? Which I thought was funny as fuck. Cody clearly does know, he's in the business, he clearly does know who he is, but I just thought that was a funny little jab in some senses. So it's an interesting one, and I suppose the potential's there, but again, it is at this point, it is just a fishing exercise from Crowbar, and I don't want to offer the man any disrespect. This might just be down to the fact that neither of us were very big into WCW, so that might be why he's not a notable name. But it's not like we're talking about like Scott Steiner or Sting or someone, is it? You know what I mean? It's going to be one, but probably more mid card than anything. But he certainly has his fans, and he's certainly looking to enter into the wrestling world. And AEW again could be potentially a good fit, but we have got a lot of OGs on AEW at the minute, so
yeah. just googling the dude to see if I recognize him at all. I
don't recognize his face even slightly. He clearly went there for the invasion, Cal.
Definitely was not.
Like most of WCW, actually.
Well, yeah, maybe he was on shitload of money as well. He wouldn't pay it, but apparently he was in the WWF for a little bit as well. In the light heavyweight division, so
under a different name, I assume.
Devon Storm.
Devon Storm.
Devon Storm. Yep,
Devon Storm, Lance's cousin.
Well, apparently, I know this isn't. We haven't got this down on the news, but I believe Lance Storm's finally said for the first time in something like 37 years he doesn't have a job anymore. So he has actually now been permanently laid off by WWE. So we know that he was furloughed because he lives in Canada and he couldn't get around and stuff. But then, they've apparently officially ended his contract now. So
I'm going to call it now. He's going to AEW.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be too easy to say. You know what I mean? A lot of the time.
I know, but I'm not just saying it because AEW is like the big one at the minute. He's previously tag teamed with Chris Jericho when they were both more independent. They've got a long-term friendship there. They're both fellow Canadians. I can see there's an in right there. Do you know what I mean? I could see Jericho wanting to pull him in. He's clearly done a lot for WWE in the background. I believe he was a producer or something backstage, wasn't he? For a long time. I could see him not necessarily on screen, but I could certainly see him getting involved with AEW's backstage works. I really could.
I think I'm just checking now. Yeah, I think even like Dean Malenko and stuff is a producer for AEW, and he's like another one who's in the same kind of clique as Lance Storm and Jericho. I think Hurricane Helms. What the fuck is his real name? Shane Helms. I think he does a little bit of work with them as well, and they're all kind of part of the same thing. So
yeah.
it seems likely, doesn't it, that he'll be some sort of road agent for them. I don't think he's going to be unemployed for a while if he wants to stay in the business.
No.
I'm sure.
Well, he knows the business really well. And I know, like a lot of people, he was never like the biggest in the biz. And like most anyone who's been in WWE or WWF, he was saddled with some poor gimmicks. But
Well, if I can be serious for a minute, that was one.
nice. And you can't argue with time saved. He knows the business, like regardless of what you thought of him as an in-ring performer. So hopefully, like you say, not unemployed for very long. And that's like a bonus news article for you guys. I didn't even mention that one.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
And while, let's continue to ride the AEW train, and we'll also talk around Pac. So, a lot of people are kind of questioning what is going on. Obviously, Pac's been missing for a while now. He did have that awesome promo.
That was a
not
little
too
bit
long
odd,
ago.
wasn't it? Like that they had that, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, I think it was just to kind of remind people that he is still around. But obviously, the questions continue to come again, and Tony Khan has actually come out and said, he's really missing Pac, and because of everything that's going on in the world and how strict the borders are and stuff like that, it's just not suitable really to be able to bring him in and bring him back for the moment. So hopefully, once travel restrictions lighten up a little bit, then we'll get to see Pac back.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's it's a fair distance, isn't it? And with the travel restrictions in place, it's not worth the risk. But it's nice to know, certainly by the sounds of it, he is secure in his position there. Because I really enjoyed him in AEW.
Yeah, the same. I think it's a shame really because he was just starting to build. I was really excited to see him as a leader of a faction with this Death Triangle.
It does beg the question: are we going back to that, or are they going to do something? Are they just going to sort of scrap it because there's been too much time gone, or?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have transitioned them into fucking partners with the Butcher and the Blade now, as opposed to Pac. So it's a bit. Who knows?
I will admit, I'm not usually critical of AEW, but it got a little bit confusing and random, the old tag team division.
Yeah, a little bit.
Look at Butcher and Blade now. What's going on there?
No idea. Even those guys have had a bit of a, not necessarily a massive gimmick change, but they're not the same as
the more goofy
they were when they got brought in. Well, exactly. And they had.
And it's the fellow who come out wearing a gimp mask.
Yeah.
And now I think he's ridiculous.
That's an excellent point, really. He does look more fucking silly in his bright white jumpsuit and that. But yeah, I don't know. I think I really can't wait for Pac to bring Pac back. He's got a t-shirt. But yeah, he was awesome. He was putting on great matches. Kenny Omega and did we get to see him face Jericho?
I don't recall
if we did, because if we didn't, I want to see it. And if it did happen and I can't remember it, but then obviously it must have been shit. But I want to see it. So if it did happen, then second time around it'll be better. So yeah, I don't know. He's got a lot to kind of still do there, I think, and he could be a massive star. He's got all the potential in the world, I think. So the sooner he can get back to it, the better.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, a backpack. Right, so I'll move on to our next one, which is Kairi Sane, Carl. Now, we've mentioned this once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I don't know. We've mentioned it a lot on the Ringside Report that Kairi's done with WWE. Well, guess what, Carl? Kairi's done with WWE. Apparently. So we recall a number of weeks ago, I think it was Dave Meltzer reported saying that she's going back home to Japan. She's going to be with her husband. The original plan was for her to be with or to be promoting NXT Japan, which is obviously not going to happen at this point. But the suggestion was always that she was going back to Japan and her time there was numbered. So now we have reports from PW Insider saying that the current WWE tapings are her final tapings with WWE. So this will be the last of it. So we'll have her on TV some more because she'll be participating in the most recent tapings, presumably the ones that are being done this week when they refer to that. And then that's her. So that'll be her written off in some capacity, unless WWE are too lazy to bother writing her off and she just has a match and we never see her again, which is also very possible.
They wouldn't do that, would they?
But it seems like the thing that's been speculated about for a number of weeks is true.
I don't know. Once, twice, 3 times a Kairi.
Yeah. So, we'll update you all on the Kairi Sane situation next week because no doubt she'll be in the Ringside Report once again. But joking aside, it is a bit of a loss for the WWE. She was actually a very talented wrestler. And as far as the women's division, I don't know. I might get criticized for this one, but it's a bit lacking at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
It's been
we're seeing the same three things over and over, and they could do with the talent, especially. And again, I keep harping on, but when you're trying to have women's tag team belts, not very many women tag teams, it doesn't fucking work. And Kabuki Warriors were a good tag team. Yeah. So sad news, but she's doing the right thing for herself, so makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, it's a shame that the NXT Japan thing didn't take off, as that would have been like quite nice to transition her and have her be the flagship of that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if she goes, or they go back to that, because they've still got a relationship with her, haven't they? She hasn't left under a cloud or anything. And when the travel restrictions are sorted again, you never know. It might be the case that they carry on with their expansion, their worldwide domination.
Well, times are hard, Anthony. People, they've only made record profits this year. And as you know, they've had to cut several WWE superstars, which brings me on to my next point.
Absolutely fucking seamless. I can't. That was amazing.
So the next article I've got around the WWE releases, shock horror at WWE releases, was allegedly that some of them were due to being particularly outspoken around the Saudi shows. So I think the names that got brought up in particular around this was Rusev, who we know was very, there was quite a few articles about him kind of refusing to work them, and he was very against it. I believe Carl Anderson was also, quite bad about it as well, and also Joe Hennig. So that would explain potentially some of those guys and their reasonings. But
yeah,
interestingly,
we'll never
one of
know
the other
for
ones.
sure. But sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was going to say one of the other ones that got mentioned in this light was actually Andrade, who basically they were like, well, he's practically a Flair now, so he's safe. It's like, you know what?
Nice.
It's interesting that you've got to bang a Flair if you want to keep your job after saying bad things around Saudi.
And sadly, there's only Rick left, so.
Woo!
No, it's an interesting parallel. Like, you'll never know for sure whether that's the reason. But when I think it was last week, we reported that Vince made the cuts himself and made the choices himself. It's an interesting parallel that a lot of them just happened to be the ones who complained about or resisted the whole Saudi deal, and obviously the issues with travel as well coming back and stuff like that. And there was a lot of complaint from that. Although, as I recall, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Carl, I think wasn't Kevin Owens quite outspoken about the whole Saudi situation as well, though? And it's not like
he was, to be honest. I mean, yeah, well, exactly. So there was a few: Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan. I think Cena at one point.
Yeah. Unless they go, actually, no, we're not that stupid. We'll keep them.
Well, yeah, maybe. But yeah, no, I mean, there was definitely quite a high number of people who refused to work them shows. So I don't know whether they're just kind of putting two and two together and making five or what. But it is interesting that, especially for like the likes of Rusev and stuff, who, by all accounts, is potentially going to be a big loss for them. He was, especially in like the feud with Cena and stuff like that, he was a very kind of big draw at one point, and they had Rusev Day, and they could, and now he was like one of the biggest at the cuts, wasn't he? To be fair, so even though he hasn't rocked up anywhere
yet. You know what? Like, we might have seen him at Slammiversary. If it wasn't for Lana.
Well,
I'm kidding. But if it wasn't for the COVID situation, we might have seen him at Slammiversary. Certainly the hints were there. Whether or not you believe that that's what they were going for with that Bulgarian flag, seems. What else would you put a Bulgarian flag up for?
Well, I don't know whether it's to get people to tune into the show, maybe.
Yeah, you make a good point there. It could just draw people in for nothing.
Yeah.
But
we're drawing you in to see fucking Luke Gallows off his tits for Bulgaria.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see a number of these release stars appearing in places now. I believe the 90 days is up for literally everyone now, isn't it? So we're going to start seeing a lot of talent randomly appearing. I'm still yet to see, obviously FTR don't really count because they weren't part of the 90-day clause, which is why they appeared sooner than the others. But it'd be interesting to see what ones AEW have managed to capture, because I'm still thinking that they've got Zack Ryder, especially Cody's comments previously, which leads me on to my next point.
Yay! God damn it! You one up me.
Beautiful.
That's all.
So the next one, Carl, Matt Cardona, if I'm pronouncing it right, the real name of Zack Ryder, has he's not confirmed any shows. He's not confirmed if he's signed with anyone or anything like that. What he has done is he's released a bit of a promo, in which he's displayed. He's been showing that he's obviously still jacked. He's still ready for wrestling. He's got his internet title, which I believe was his creation and therefore his anyway, nothing to do with WWE. Not that they ever fucking used it, but he's had a revamped version made of his internet title, which is quite similar, but I believe it's a skull now instead of the sort of bro head as it was. And on top of that, he's suggesting anyway that the music used in it was going to be his new entrance theme, which is actually a song by and again, apologies if I pronounce it wrong, by a band Downstate, which you might recall them, Carl, because they actually do the song Kingdom for Cody Rhodes' entrance.
They do.
They also do the Miz's, actually, and they also did radio for Zack Ryder in WWE.
Well,
by no means suggesting that it's AEW bound because of that.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was like, oh shit, that those are the guys who do Cody stuff, and I looked and I was like, oh no, they do radio as well. Okay, fine.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did radio, and as apparently they do. I Came to Play, which I didn't realize, which is the Miz's.
Interesting.
Seems they're quite varied on the old talent front, because I wouldn't have guessed they were all the same people.
They can definitely switch it up when they want to, them guys.
Oh, yeah. But you never know. I mean, Cody's been quite outspoken about it. I think previously mentioned that there's a person he could sign from WWE. Zack Ryder was definitely up there in terms of people he'd sign, and now he was a free agent. So I personally, I think AEW, and I think AEW would be a great fit for him. I think he'd fit really well into their main event scene, in all honesty. And put him in a program with Jericho, and he'll get him over, because Jericho's the master of getting people over. Look at the work he's doing with OC at the minute. Not that Orange couldn't get himself, sort of, because he that match he had with Pac was fantastic as well. So it's not like he needed Jericho, but at the same time, their program together has been fantastic, and I'd really look forward to seeing Zack Ryder in a similar thing.
Well, that's it. I mean, they say, don't they? If you've ever gotten over once in this business, then you can get over again. And you can't downplay the fact that there's at least twice in a very poor WWE run, which isn't necessarily Zack's fault, to be fair, even though he took a bit of responsibility for it. But he was very over around the awfulness that was the John Cena Eve whatever storyline, and he was very over when he won the Intercontinental Championship as well. So the guy can get over. So it's whether he can do it at like a main event level. You know what I mean? So if he does go to AEW, is he going to be more like a Sean Spears, or is he going to be more like
the only thing I want I really hope he's not a Sean Spears. I don't mean to railroad over that point. I ruminated on that for a minute and thought, no, don't have him be a Sean Spears.
God,
fuck that.
No, he's got a glove now.
He's got a glove. It was a fucking magic glove. I've not seen him since.
As soon as he gets a hat in the moonwalk, then we saw it.
But yeah, if he comes over, and as stupid as a petty thing as it is for me, what I don't want is for him to come over with the internet title straight away. I think it'd be a good title to use in AEW, but we've already had TNT rock up, and we've already had this FTW title. For him to turn up and go, I've got one too, would just be fucking ridiculous.
It really would.
So otherwise it's going to be a bit like bring your own fucking belt, really, isn't it? So I don't know. For me, if he does come over, and they do intend on using the internet title, I hope it's not all done in one foul swoop. I hope they kind of hold off on that for a bit.
I mean, to be honest, that's what kind of worries me a little bit, is the fact that he's kind of bringing back this internet title, because surely you would think if he was going to go over, they'd try and use him as a main event guy. But if he's the internet, for me, that's like the 24/7 title equivalent. So whether or not that's just them going to be actually booking it better and it becomes a decent title or what, like for me, the internet title.
I hold out hope that they book it better, because this could have always been a good title. It was like having the TV title that was at WCW or ECW had the TV title. And it could be like a modern day version. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I mean. That's what the TNT title is, though, to a degree. It gets defended every fucking week.
I know, but they could do something with it. Like, let's have an example that the internet title's defended on Dark, which is a YouTube show.
Okay.
Boom. There you go. Booked it.
Fucking hell. Yeah, there you go. Done. Job done. Right, anyone listening, hand this guy a fucking writer's deal. Tell you, fucking
Well,
he
both,
had the
Carl. I mean,
20,
look, we masterfully wrote and put together A to the K. I mean, we're a writing duo, Carl. That's how it works, man.
Yeah, I link up all your jokes. How it works. All your genius ideas, I find a way to link them together. But no, like, you know, I still think that your idea, that 24/7 title change at the Rumble, like, fucking hell, like, that was awesome. Like, do that. I mean,
Why? Yeah, they don't do anything. Look at it now. It's turned into a weird fucking cat and mouse between Tozawa and the one who holds the belt.
we'll come on to this shite when we talk about Raw.
Yes,
But
yes, we will.
anyway,
And I genuinely, this week's Raw was the first time I heard Tozawa talk.
yeah.
Oh, what an intimidating man he is.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that is the Ringside Report.
This week's episode is brought to you by floriday.co.uk, where you can get all the latest news about Florida, Disney, and Universal Studios, as well as valuable tips and touring plans to get the most out of your Florida holiday. That's floriday.co.uk, the sunshine state of mind.
Hey guys, Santino Marella here. And if you're like me, you're sitting home during the quarantines. These are the times of quarantine. Well, I discovered a Wrestle Talk podcast called A to the K. It's changed my life. Now I don't want to go back to work. I just want to sit home in the quarantines and listen to Carl and Anthony. They are the best. Together, they're even better. So listen, A to the K. Wrestle Talk podcast. Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.